Hello, my name is Trader and welcome to the Marketplace. Today we are doing a book and a beat on the book Tears of the Wolf by Elisabeth Wheatley. A couple of disclaimers: this is not for the author. This is simply me doing my makeup while essentially summarizing the entire book, so there will be spoilers. I will go over my spoiler-free thoughts and opinions at the beginning, and then I will jump into the synopsis of the book, more or less. So when it comes to any trigger warnings for Tears of the Wolf, there really is none. There is the loss of a child and like general fantasy gore and violence, but nothing like particularly extreme. I will not be going into much detail. So we can go ahead and I can grab my makeup brushes and we can get into it. So my initial thoughts is that the character writing for this book is fantastic. It is a dual POV between the character Bryn and the character Cedric. Dual POV, however, it is third-person dual POV, so that you are not necessarily getting I statements, which I prefer that way of writing when it comes to dual POVs. But our characters are Bryn and Cedric. Bryn is a Estovian sorceress, which, if you have, this book takes place in the same world as Dangerous Assassins. So it still has the same Ka as the sort of magic that infuses all of life, as well as still the Estovian warrior, the Estovian sorcerers that are mentioned in that book. I don't really know how exactly that they're tied together. And of course my cat decides to start playing now. But the two worlds are linked together, just so that you are aware. But Bryn is the daughter of an Estovian sorceress who was previously married to another one of the aldermen of this kingdom. She ended up having a son. I'm not counting this as a spoiler because it's said within the first chapter. Her son is killed off screen at like a year old. It's very tragic. A lot of the story is about her just general grieving, as well as coming to terms with being in like a loving relationship. Cedric is the alderman of a far north settlement that he has recently come into power for. Recently as in like the last, I think it's like 5 to 6 years. We are set up with the fact that there was previously a large war, as well as the fact that the northern lands are frequently raided by the Valdyr, V-A-L-D-I-R, Valdyr, who are essentially what we better associate as Vikings. You know, ships, raiding, pillaging, you know, all of that situation. We do find out that Cedric is part Valdyr, which ends up being a little bit of a sticking point between him and Bryn. I don't know why I was almost to say Briar, but Bryn's relationship. Now, any other non-spoilery details? There's a puppy. There's a telepathic puppy, and he makes me so happy. His name is Snapper. He is a dire hound, I think is how it's pronounced. And they're essentially gifts from the goddess that Cedric's family lineage worships. Alrighty. Getting into the story itself, Bryn in the very first chapter is getting her marriage annulled by her cousin, who is the king. Cannot remember his name, in all honesty. He's kind of important in the first couple of chapters. He is a sickly king who took over power during the war that happened a couple of years ago. Couple as in like 10-ish. Which Bryn had fought in, as well as her sister, who did unfortunately die in said battle. I am like spraying eyeshadow all over my face. Not that you can see. So she is getting the marriage to the, I think it's Pega, something along those lines. Either way, he sided with the king during this war, so he became an alderman. And his, unfortunately, wife and children died in that war. So he is not very keen on having Bryn as a spouse, so she goes to her cousin, the king, to get it annulled. This is without her mother's knowledge, which will become important later on in the story. It is not important at this moment, though. But she is able to get it annulled, and the only stipulation was that the king would choose her next, like, marriage partner, essentially. Though it's a little scuffed when it comes to, like, did she really choose it? But she chose it through accepting the terms, essentially. So he ends up setting up her up immediately with Cedric. Like, Cedric? Don't mind me. Senric. Yep. Senric. Not Cedric. Senric. Sorry. By immediately setting her up with Senric, like the next day is when they get married. So the first couple chapters all deal with this like very hasty marriage. And there's this great scene on the night of the wedding. Bryn is horribly plastered. Just kind of spills a lot to Senric about like, yeah, my son's dead. I miss him. You can do whatever you want to me. I will perform my duties as your wife. And he goes, you're gonna lay down. I'm gonna pull this trunk in front of the door and I'm gonna sleep on the ground. And he does it, and it's great. I would like to mention, the puppy is not telepathic to everybody. It is just Senric who has the telepathic connection with the puppy, and it makes me so happy. So, they set off to Umbra, which are the lands that Senric is essentially in charge of. Sorry, I have to take a look at this. Yeah. That Senric is a part of, or owns, takes care of. So they set off the next day. They're on the boat for a little while. We get introduced to a couple other characters. There's a boy named Callan. Kalen. Yeah, Callan. Who is like very young. And he's just kind of like there with Senric a lot of the time. He's just kind of low-key gives lost puppy vibes sometimes. But he's a young warrior, and he kind of sticks close to Senric throughout the entire story. Then there is Eldrick, who is Senric's right-hand man. And he's great. I love him. He's a fun, goofy little guy. He's very similar to Thadian. God, I can't remember his name, but dangerous cousin brother situation in that series. Very similar vibes, just not as like present within this story. So, but still great. So they set off. Bryn takes with her only Essa, who is her like lady-in-waiting, maid, all of that situation. She is also a young sorceress. But Bryn, they hit shore, and Bryn immediately goes, all right, where is your sick and injured? And starts healing people. She makes it very clear from the beginning, like, these are now my people, I will take care of them. So she starts going around to help people, mend animals, etc., and do all these things. As she is doing this, Senric does get called off to go help his aunt, because there is a dire wolf who was his brother's dire wolf. The thing is, his brother died in the war, as everybody did. And she was very young when it happened, so she just kind of lost her mind. So she's practically feral, unlike the other dire wolves, who are all very, very loyal to Senric. including Thorn, who low-key might be my favorite character. He's this grumpy old wolf. I adore him. So he has to tell Bryn, I can't be here, despite the fact that, like, the entire time that they were traveling, he was super sweet. They got to know each other pretty well. And, like, Bryn's like, oh, he might actually, like, care about me. I might actually have somebody who, like, cares for me. And then he goes, I have to go deal with this. And she's like, okay. There is a lot of the story that she just kind of gets pushed to the wayside because he needs to continue to, like, care for his people, which do come first for a lot of the time. So Bryn continues to learn about the place in which she will call home, the house that she will manage. It's this giant long house. The descriptions of everything are super pretty, and I find it very easy to see everything within my mind's eye for this book. So I enjoyed a lot of the descriptions. I enjoyed a lot of, like, the idea of this, like, large, vast space that is just so untamed by the wilderness. Sorry, I'm, like, trying to do eyeliner now. So he goes off. Of course, he goes and meets his aunt. And she's right, it is Nettles that she is locked in the barn. So there ends up being this little bit of a scuffle that ends up happening. We find out that Nettles had a puppy. So Cedric brings the puppy back, says, this is a gift from my wife, and gives it to Bryn, who frankly is, like, overjoyed with this tiny little puppy. And she's kind of like, this low-key fills a hole in my heart. Like, not entirely, but a little bit. So once he gets back, it starts to become, okay, we have to start preparing for the winter. We have to, like, harvest the grain, get the cattle ready, all of these things. So it becomes a monotonous day of Cedric out in the fields, helping, like, cut stock, cut wheat, all of these things. And he is actually in a far field when I think it's a Thane, is the terminology. A Thane that is kind of been on his ass for a lot of the time that he has ruled. He's one of the few people who have not, like, not necessarily surrendered, but, like, joined Cedric. They've been enemies for the past 2 years. I think it's, like, Orphil or Olafin, something along those lines. But he's an old crotchety man, and he rocks up fully armed to essentially a defenseless town. Bryn just waltzes up and goes, welcome, we weren't expecting you to be here, but you guys can stable your horses here, and you can go ahead and join us for dinner. And he just goes, mind you, Bryn is a incredibly strong sorceress. He just goes, okay. So there starts to be a tentative peace between these two, which ends up being a good thing, as we will see later in the story. I will say, there's nothing that happens in this book for no reason. Olafin, I'm not going to look up his name right now because I am busy trying to finish this makeup look. But he returns to his town, his city, his little area, and up comes Hororin. Anyways, it's Cedric's as close to a brother as you can get. But he is Valdrin, which, if you don't remember, is the Viking people who, at this point, we have suspicions, ended up raiding the lands that Bryn previously lived in and killed her son. So he rocks up. He goes, hey, brother. There's going to be a raid at the fishing village near you. Your fishing village. One of your fishing villages. So Cedric has to then go off again. Bryn is, like, once again, regularly left to her own devices, and she does very well for the most part. I feel like I'm missing pieces. but I don't think I am. So he goes off with his brother in arms, essentially. Ooh, I gotta make sure I don't do this. Who's she think? Ooh, she's getting a little messy. Okay. Anyways, but they go off, and they end up, the town does end up getting raided. Not Cendric's home, but the little fishing village does end up getting raided. So they deal with that, and they end up finding a ring that belonged to Bryn's ex-husband. So what ends up becoming of that is they interrogate the man. They find out who was in charge of that raid that happened. They then head off to that village to go deal with that. And they find the man who ended up killing Bryn's son. All while this is happening, Bryn is dealing with the household, doing great, continuing to fix up people, making relations with Cendric's past lover, which is a little bit of a sticking point. All gets worked out. It's not too much of an issue. It is like a little interpersonal drama, though, that I'm just kind of skipping over. And she's dealing with the household. Her mother shows up, who happens to be a very powerful sorceress, who's incredibly upset that Bryn decided to marry Cendric without her permission, despite the fact that Bryn is a 30-year-old woman and does not need her mother's permission. So we end up getting a very heated conversation between the two of them in private, where Celine's like, no, you are coming with me. You're going to marry your husband again, your ex-husband again, have one of his children. Then when he dies, you're going to go be with this other man, and you are going to be queen. It's essentially the main thing, is that she wants a Estovian sorceress on the throne, and she has decided that it's going to be her daughter. The council actually has, theoretically speaking. This becomes a whole issue. Bryn at some point goes, no, you're going to leave. And Cendric goes, he comes home, walks through the door and says, my wife told you to leave. And she just goes, fine. Of course, it's not fine, but we'll get to that. Cendric ends up presenting Bryn the murderer of her son. And she's like, I didn't want this. She's crying and all this kind of stuff. And then this man escapes and goes immediately for Cendric to try and kill him. She, like, twisted his head off his body. And she just goes, that was weirdly nice. And people around her are, like, mildly horrified because this woman, with her bare hands, fully decapitated this man. Bryn is terrifying. I love her. She is my favorite character. Oh, she's great. So, the glare on my glasses is so bad, so I have to keep, like, screw it, we'll do it like this. So, that happens. Cendric and Bryn go to bed. They do some things. This book is not... Okay, so, this book is spicy. Is it spicy on a regular occurrence? No, but there's one chef's kiss spice scene. It's like a whole chapter. It's taken very well. Bryn has very little experience and has such low self-esteem. And Cendric goes, nope, you are a goddess. And treats her as such. Peak. Ooh. I love these characters. I love this relationship. Cendric is just god of a man. And Bryn is amazing. So they go to sleep. Bryn wakes up the next morning. Cendric had previously told her, hey, you need to stay close to me for the next couple of days because I had a vision about you drowning. And she goes, okay. Mind you, Cendric gets visions from his goddess of things that he can present. Horrible things that happen that he can present. And he saw Bryn drowned, washed up on shore. So Bryn says, okay, I'll stay close to you the next day. Next morning, wakes up without this man, goes out with the dogs, and what happens? Stampede of young oxen. They're not called oxen, they're called... It is a long dead type of cattle that I don't know how to pronounce. Anyways, there's a stampede of them. This is the cattle that they've brought in for the slaughter for the winter. It has... they trample people. They are cutting through the tents. all of these things. And Bryn goes, what the hell is happening? And then her mother and her little cronies go, you're coming with us, and chloroform her ass. The puppy also gets kicked. I will mention that. The puppy is fine. The puppy does get kicked, though. Anyways, girl gets chloroformed and yanked and thrown into a wagon. Cedric wakes up and goes, where is my wife? Where is wife? He sees the stampede going outside. He starts to try and, like, get things under control, essentially. And then he is faced with the decision of, do I go after wife? With the few men that I have, that I really cannot spare at the moment, because they need to wrangle the cattle. They need to, like, get things in place at our homestead, because it is an absolute mess and winter is too soon to be dealing with this. So this man goes, there's somebody I can go to. And he goes to the crotchety old man, and he goes, my wife got taken. And Orville goes, yeah, they're trying to bring a boat through our area. And there's this tense standoff, because Cedric dismounts his horse and takes off his helmet, which, like, huge show of, like, begging, essentially, because he is unarmed and with, like, an easy shot to kill. Walks up to the man and just goes, I need you to help me save my wife. And Orville goes, I don't like you. You remind me a lot of myself when I was younger. And I really like your wife. So he goes, yeah, we're going to help you. So they all suit up and they start heading down towards the beach where this boat is supposed to be pulling in. We cut to Bryn being in the back of a wagon with Essa beside her. Apparently her mother was going to try and lure Bryn out with Essa and use that as the way to, like, lure her into this trap. But Essa went, no. And Selena went, I will kill you. And Essa went, no. Essa's, mind you, like a 14-year-old child. Sweet little girl. Little child. No. Bryn, on this, like, caravan ride to where they're going to be picked up, goes, you gotta let her go. And after a lot of convincing, Selena went, yeah, we'll go ahead and tie her to this tree in this remote area. And Bryn's like, she's gonna die. And Selena's just like, I said I'd leave her on land. I made my promise. I'm sticking to it. You be grateful, child. So Bryn just goes, hopefully somebody finds her. Meanwhile, Bryn has this, like, collar, like, thick rod metal collar, and it's called dark iron. And it essentially absorbs magic, so she cannot cast any spells. She can draw in Ka, but she cannot cast spells. So she's doing this in massive waves to essentially overpower the collar. So as Bryn is getting on the ship, she's on the ship, the seafaring sorceress goes, I never agreed to kidnap anybody. And Celine goes, I will give you answers when we get out into the sea. And this witch goes, if I don't like the answers, we're turning around. And Celine's like, fine. So they get on the ship. And again, Bryn is pulling in mass amounts of power. Mind you, Bryn works with her magic every single day. In small ways, in healing ways, but she does it every single day. And I would like to mention, destructive magic is a lot easier than healing magic, which will come into play later. Actually, very, very soon. So they end up going off. They start leaving the, like, little inlet, and then yank, there's a rope. Cedric and Orville had gotten there, essentially stopped the boat, and there's another guy pulling it onto the beach, and this is when, like, the fight starts to break out. And suddenly, and without warning, there's a giant golden light. Bryn blew up the collar and the entire ship. Nobody was killed in this aftermath, but the shockwave did, like, throw everybody. So Cedric's like, okay, we're gonna start fighting. They start fighting. A couple of dudes get killed. Bryn is in the afterlife. She's talking with her sister, and her sister's like, I need you to get up. Wake up. What are you doing here? You need to continue to live. You too soon. I don't want to see you here again. And Bryn goes, okay, I don't want to die, and wakes up. there's more to it. It's actually a really well written scene, and I deeply enjoy it because we hear about Bryn's son and how her ex-husband's wife is taking care of him because Bryn was such a loyal second wife and continued to leave gifts and honor. Sorry, I got things in my throat. The Peregrine's first wife. So she's like, yeah, he's all good. I'm all good. Get back out there. So Bryn wakes up in the water. She's able to... Actually, she can't swim. I mean, she could, but she's like tied elbow to wrist. And I think it's behind her back, too. But Snapper, the good boy. The dogs are like actually fairly useful throughout the entire story and are used fairly regularly. I'm just not mentioning it all because I want you to go read this book for the dog. Snapper finds her, and one of Orifil's men yanks her out of the water. She's alive, thank God. She essentially is like, where is my husband? The great thing about Bryn and Cedric is just, if they are apart, it goes, where is my wife and where is my husband? And I love it. So she takes off to go find them. She throws herself in the middle of Celine, her mother's like firewall essentially, and her husband and their like shield barrier, and she just casts this massive shield and is tanking all of this magic and pulling it into herself before like redirecting and straight up like bisecting her mother. This is mainly due to the fact that she once again has incredibly great control over her magic because it is so difficult to heal because you are moving Ka through the body in a way to make sure that it heals properly. I love the magic system in this. I'm really not going into much detail, but I love the magic system in this. So she just kind of chops down her mother. There's a little bit more killing, a little bit more dealing with other people. And eventually, it's just the Seafarer Witch left. And she goes, mercy for me and my men. I did not know I was kidnapping you. And Bryn goes, fine, you can leave. She's like, my ship's destroyed. And Cedric goes, you can walk. If you walk through the night, you'll be out of my lands. And she's like, we can't walk all night. And he goes, my wife is being merciful. I am not. You tried to kidnap her. Leave. And they just start running. So, yeah. Bryn and Cedric are reunited. And that's kind of the end of the story. That's where it pretty much ends and wraps up. We don't head back to the village to see any of what the aftermath of that is going on for. That being said, Tears of the Wolf is a series. The second book should be coming out some point either this year or early next year, and I'm very, very excited. Yeah, but it is, what is it called? It's called Wrath and Weeping. It's the first book, and I'm very excited for the next one. Little close-up on the makeup. It is based heavily off of the fact that the cover is blue, brown, and gold. But I'm very happy with the way that it turned out. And that is all of my thoughts and opinions on the book. I think it's fantastic. I think you should read it. I also highly recommend the rest of Elisabeth Wheatley's work. I deeply enjoy this author. It's one of the few authors that I will read multiple books from. Not because I necessarily dislike other authors, it's just, this is the one that's spoken to me. But yeah, that is it for, I was about to say this week's, but this is not a week. No. Book and a Beat is not a weekly thing. It is not going to be a weekly thing. But that's it for this episode of Book and a Beat. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.